is the primary interest that you've had and some of the other council members to kind of get us back and allow these options anyway?
Okay. Accessory dwelling units are really a wonderful solution for two issues that we face in Missoula. One is we have decided as a community, and through representatives like myself, to develop a growth policy that focuses inward. That no longer are we going to emphasize sprawl, and because, one, we want to have clean air, which we have a problem here in Missoula, so we don't want to increase traffic if we don't have to. And we also have a long-range transportation plan which says, let's support that focusing inward development. We are going to grow, and we want to grow, just like the university will be growing in the future. So we want to provide good transit, as we fairly well do right now. We want to improve that, get the frequency better, and allow for biking and walking around town if people build in town. So ADUs, which are used nationally, the National Association of Realtors sees it as a tool to use for that kind of development. The Association of Retired People say it's just wonderful for elderly folk who want to stay in their house and can either use the income from the ADU to help them pay their mortgage and therefore stay in their house if they're now on Social Security and don't have their full job income, or they could move into the ADU and rent their full house. So those two, and then the second issue is the low vacancy rate in rentals that we have here. It's mostly because we're a university town. We have 13 to 15,000 students all clamoring to get a place, some on campus, but a lot want to live off campus close to the university. So that has driven up the prices of rentals, makes it difficult for students to find places where they can bike and walk or take transit to school. They may have to go all the way out to Reserve Street to find something that they can afford. So we want to use the tool of accessory dwelling units, as well as the new tool that the mayor and the university president announced about the quality of life issues of actually building apartment buildings for students. So ADUs is part of that solution, in my view.
And one of the ideas, it sounds like you're interested in seeing now options that sort of match the changes we see, changing demographics, changing market conditions, and that's really what's driving some of the interest here.
That's right. Nationally, I think it's Generation Y is the latest young generation, but those people, there's a trend going on. They don't buy cars. They don't use them very often. They're moving into cities. They like transit. So we want to be accommodating for that future generation. Also, accessory dwelling units allow people who are, let's say, a young family with children, and they can't afford more than maybe $250,000 for a house, whereas, say, in the university districts that are getting close to $500,000, if they were able to buy a house with an accessory dwelling unit, they could take that revenue and apply it to their mortgage payment, and therefore be able to transition as those houses become available in our sort of the most beautiful neighborhoods, so they're not restricted from that.
I know that, as you mentioned, really what we're talking about, there's been some hyperbole out there. People talk about, well, this is, citywide. Is this? The interest is just working in these specific zones, isn't it? These detached areas. In many cases, the accessory dwelling unit is already possible in some parts.
Yes, and in over half of the city, accessory dwelling units are allowed in so-called multi-unit districts where attached units are allowed. In our detached districts, which is mostly the single unit buildings on one plot of land, they are not allowed, and we want to make them allowed for folks.
I know some of the critics have looked at this, and it's almost like they're painting it as planning Armageddon, that this is, the end of all that is good and right about Missoula. I get the impression you're saying this is really about the future of Missoula and looking at all aspects of things.
Yes, I mean, I was thinking this morning, I have a unique experience as a city councilor. I spent over 30 years as a city planner and as a transportation director in cities around the country. And I know that this strategy of allowing accessory dwelling units is used in many big cities like Seattle and Portland and Boston, etc. And Vancouver, BC, for instance, they're using it. And the state of Washington has put together a document that says this is how you can do it in a small town as well as a big town. So people are looking to, okay, what is the future? Price of gas is going up. We got to provide people transportation options. They can't be buying so many cars that most people will have at least one. And by the way, in our rules, we're saying that they do have to provide an off-street space for the ADU. So we're trying to anticipate that. And really, we're responding to the residents of this town who over the last 20 years have said that we need to develop our downtown, our beautiful waterfront. We want people to live close into town. We are going to make a major investment in transit. Most of the riders on the transit system ride free because their employers pay for it. So we want to have this in the mix so that it can encourage that kind of thing.
And with the thought that there's the safeguards built in there, you mentioned the parking, things like view shed, there are provisions in this you feel that prevent this from becoming a problem.
Right. The size, for instance, we started out with 800 square feet. When we got back the questionnaires that people filled out, it seemed like they wanted them smaller. So we moved it down to 600 square feet. So that you're not going to cram 6 students into 600 square feet. That will be against the safety regulations. So they're going to be studios. They're going to be 1 bedrooms, maybe 2 bedrooms. So we're limiting the size. We're requiring the owner of the principal residence to live in the principal residence. So if there's loud noise or garbage left out or dogs barking or cars on the sidewalk, the owner can self-police that. They live right there. And I think I've covered, I think those, one other thing is that we're going to look at the illegal non-conforming ones that are out there. And we're saying, folks, we'll give you a year to come into code and then you will be legal. And we're hoping that will deal with the safety issues of ones that may be around town that don't have the proper access windows, those kinds of things.